If we talk about photojournalism, we talk about authentic images that should document what has happened at a certain place. And I think this information that it gives is attacked now from different sides. One side is an economical side. To be a photojournalist has been a profession that is not well paid. And from my work with different photo organizations in Germany, I know that if you take a portrait of the German Chancellor on the cover of Spiegel magazine, which is the top end of possible magazines, you get 600 euros. It's not enough, to pay your living. So most photojournalists did commercial photo jobs on the side. And I have been given workshops for Freelance, which is the major organization of photojournalists in Germany. And I've learned that they did food photography in the past, or for companies or advertising. And the competition in those commercial photo jobs is becoming bigger and bigger. But the actual amount of jobs is becoming less and less because companies or advertising agencies that used to give those jobs to photographers in the past are now using AI and building up their own AI team. That means the financial situation of photojournalists is going to become very difficult in the future. Most magazines and picture editors don't have it on the radar. The second problem is that the whole system of photojournalism is based on trust between the picture editors and the photo agencies and the single photograph, and also between their readers and the publication. But if you're zooming out of that bubble and you look in general on where people get information, it is social media. And the high quality content in social media from the press is always behind the paywall. So the majority of stuff you see in social media is just crap. And this is becoming more and more because more and more of the internet will be AI generated. So how is this influencing democracies? It's a big problem. We don't know. It's very easy to create fakes and disinformation and spread it via social media. So I think AI is not the main problem here. For me, AI is like the new superfuel for the engine that is called social media. And if you would like to do something against it, as democratic states, you also need to force social media to be redesigned. Both need to happen in parallel. And there are very interesting suggestions. In Germany, there was a foundation, Bertelsmann Foundation, together with the German Council of Citizens, and they had an open call earlier this year to come up with ideas on how to fight disinformation. And 200,000 people contribute. I was one of them, and the result was handed over to the Ministry of Inner Affairs in September, and there are very good suggestions. So some people suggest that the sharing option should have a reminder. Do you really want to share this? Do you know where it's coming from? Do you trust the source? Others suggest that the sharing option should just have a delay of 2 minutes so you can think about it, maybe more difficult. I've recently been in Canada, and there the sharing option of media stuff is not possible because the state of Canada and Meta are having a fight over remuneration of the press. So this option was just turned off. These things can be done, and I think social media needs to be forced to move away from the advertising model and to go to a subscription model. If you take out the advertising model as the core business idea, you also have gotten rid of the targeting of specific groups. There are many questions here. I would like to start with Baudelaire and the similarity, because all the accusations that painters had towards photography 200 years ago are similar to what photographers accuse AI of. As photography was a threat for painting and took away jobs, which is like the realistic portraits of people, it also opened up new possibilities for painting. And that was the start of the history of the 20th century of painting as we know it today, where painting is freed from having realistic depictions and can become very experimental. Now AI is taking away jobs from photography, but interestingly enough, it's not the documentary part. This is left. Yeah, the authentic image can't be replaced, but what AI is taking away is anything that is imagined, symbolic. You can do it faster and cheaper. So here it's just the opposite, where when photography was attacking painting, painting could become experimental, and now AI is attacking photography. Photography has only left the traditional part of documentary, but that's the sad thing. How is it going to continue in the future is something we can only respond to if we understand what creativity really is. And having had an interest in creativity theories for a long time, I only see one theory by Margaret N. Bowden, who is 20 years old, that can help us understand how it works and how we could move on. And she is separating creativity into 3 different categories. It is combination, and that is something we see show very often. It's combining given content. Yeah? It's like Batman dressed as Barbie. And then you have exploration, and that is looking more closely at a given structure. And my perspective here is that into this direction, and an AI could look behind me, under my chair and behind the images, and take all of this into account. And this is where I see a big plus for science. And given content and given structure is training data. And the big question is there something else that is not related to the training data? And for Margaret and Bowden, it is transformation. It is making a leap out of what we know and creating something else. Yeah, having a paradigm shift. So if this would be a foundation of us to move on with creativity, it means we can outsource combination and exploration, but we need to set up whatever we do in a structure that we have the materials feed the AI. And then whatever the AI does with it will be our material to concentrate on the transformative part and make this part larger. Because if we look at creativity in general, I think the majority of what we produce is combination. You see it in music, where new music styles are created by combining old styles and taking bits and pieces. And you see it in the mainstream of AI. Mainstream is just combining things without thinking ahead and thinking, why should I have a person with a head like an animal? What does it mean? Where does it lead me to? AI is forcing us to become more aware of what it means, what creativity is, what intelligence is, what consciousness is. But it could also be that maybe there is no transformation creativity. Maybe you could also see this as a mix of given content and structure, and then we can be replaced. But what can't be replaced is that an AI has no intention to create anything. It needs a prompt. And we as human beings, we want from the moment we are born. We want to eat, to drink, to sleep, to be put on a toilet, and it never ends. And an AI doesn't want anything. I think a work I still like from 2006 is showing the failure of seeing that this need for transcendence is possibly something that is in our DNA. And that would be The School of Hope, the Show Must Go On, which is a mix between Jesus on the cross, and the same time the sound and what is happening is like he would be a boxer in a boxing fight. And you hear the commentary, like in a live sports event, and it's structured like a boxing fight with like 2 minutes fight and 30 seconds break. And in the break from left and right, you have hands entering the frame with water and refreshing him. And the main story is actually the narrator for TV. And because his expectation that this is going to become the new champion, and then his disappointment, when he's losing the fight, that is a very, I think, negative space of this problem, and I still like. No, I think it's structurally connected, just the terminology is changing. Where for Jung, the collective unconscious is archetypes that come with the structure of our mind, that are timeless and the same across cultures. And what we have in the training data is a mirror of mankind because it was collected from the internet, but the archetypes in the training data is what people call bias. I think there's an overlapping part. Bias, it's like a certain perspective on the world that a teacher, that if you ask for an image for a teacher, in the beginning, you always got a white woman in her 40s. And that is a totally biased that this is how it should look like. But at the same time, the teacher in the Jungian understanding is an archetype that belongs to us, like mother, father, and teacher is one of it. It is just filled with a certain perspective of a culture or training data, and then it's called bias. So they are connected.
Yeah.
I see bias all the time, and there are artists that only concentrate their work on making this bias visible. I see it and I work around because I'm not interested in the bias. Yes, but I also see that capacity disappearing.
Oh.
In the early days, where it was very problematic to have fingers, hands, and limbs right, you got a lot of mutations and grotesque images, and then the uncanny was everywhere. But all the platforms are trying to push it back to have a certain glossy sugar coating on everything. But what I'm trying to do with art is it's an invitation for an inner journey. And it's not me telling you something about something. It's giving you an impulse for you to react to. What kind of feelings, emotions, thoughts are triggered? Am I attracted or appalled? I think if you remember some of those images next week, I'm happy it's done. It should work on different levels. It should work on an unconscious emotional level. But there's also a title attached to the work where you can go and go wild with your thoughts, and connect it on a theoretical level. But did it answer your question, or is something open?
Yes and no. It is still, I think, open because that is still you who decides that consciously and
Yes.
makes it happen.
Yeah,
the AI.
I made uncanny images with photography.
Yeah.
Before. I always wanted to have something that connects opposite, and I'm still not there to have the right mix. Yeah, I have some images that are more on the ironic, funny side, and one series that are darker and more disturbing, and then there's a mix, and I'm still trying to find the right mix between them. It's a lifelong
Yeah.
experimentation. Yes, that's a big problem. Yeah, because you only and study it again. It is a big problem because fake images can happen today and are contemporary, but you can also create historical fakes. Yeah, you can rewrite history. You can narrate alternative histories, and that can become a problem. So today, we still remember that 1.5 years ago, there was this image of Trump gets arrested, or the Pope in this Balenciaga jacket. But in 100 years or in 200 years, is this knowledge gone? Yeah, is still the image left? Will people think it has really happened? We don't know. Yeah, and it's a challenge. Yeah, for any historian and archives. Yeah, that there will be more and more fake historical pictures, and they are very well in manipulating people.
Yeah. I think it reminds me a bit of Mandela effect.
Mhm.
That in that it's still getting people together, and then you talk as a group. That you just maybe argue also and say, no, it was like that, no, it was like that. And I think in a way it will bring people together. That maybe a little bit closer just because of this reason.
I'm not that optimistic. I'm not pessimistic. I'm trying to be realistic. We'll see. We'll see. Because what I've realized over the last 20 years with social media, that people are comfortable in their bubble and they want to believe what fits to their perspective, and you can't convince them otherwise, yeah, with no proof and facts. Hasn't that been a problem with photography in the past? Yeah, that you have photographers that go to a certain place for 2 weeks, take pictures and leave. Yeah, or what kind of understanding or deeper connection to the place do they actually have? Yeah, and if you're a professional photojournalist, you are sent to places, yeah, and because then they expect you to be more neutral than the local photographers, but you have no connection to the place. And this is why in a daily work, the professional photojournalists that are sent somewhere, they need a local expert called fixer that helps them to get around and to stay safe. I think this person is then translating this cultural stuff. Each new technology is promising a democratization of creativity. It's not the first time. Photography was the same. But does it actually happen? I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. If you look at photography becoming the predominant medium with being part of what we have in our pockets as a smartphone, so many pictures taken, but how many of those people who take the pictures are photographers or photo artists? And I think it's the same working with AI. And for me, there are different groups of people working with AI. And it depends on the person and the background. I love to work with AI because for me it's a knowledge booster. I work with my experience and my skills in the prompting and in the evaluation. And the more professional background I have, the more my outcome is different from the usual. Because if you're not able to define what you would like to get, the AI is taking over and doing all the work. I can give you an example from text prompting. In text prompting, you can define 13 elements. The subject, what should be on there, man, dog, cat, woman. But then you need to specify, to solidify what kind of cat you would like to have, because otherwise you get a statistical average or statistical average of a woman, depending on the platform. And on Midjourney, it's always 25 long hair, same model. Then there is a certain action that is happening. There's an emotional quality, vibe. There is a location. And that part of the story anyone can define. But then you have categories that relate to your background. And the one is regarding the medium. What kind of medium would you like to regenerate? If it's photography, you can go back over 200 years in the history of photography. There is a technological part attached. I can define that the camera should be a certain type, the lens should be a certain type, should be a certain digital or analog film, etc. Then it's image making, the perspective. How do I look onto the scenery? Is there something happening in the foreground, in the middle ground, in the background? What about the light? What about the colors? What references do you use? Most people only use style to steal an existing style, but you can use schools, decades, online platforms as references. And you can also define genres, because an image of a dog will differentiate between advertising, documentary, and fine art. And so having this knowledge, you can do a much more informed prompt. If you don't have this knowledge, you will ask for a picture of a dog chasing a cat. And all the other parameters that you could decide are decided by the AI. And that means, what does it mean? It means that in the past where you have not been able to create a decent outcome, you can do now because AI is doing it for you, and the low level of image quality will disappear. The opposite scenario would be that it gets worse. Where in the past you had people looking at the Picasso and saying, "Oh, I could do it too," or "My child could do it." Yeah, you could now look at work and could say, "AI did it, not the artist." So it can also devalue the outcome, and this is what has happened in the last 2 years with people being against AI. Because they said there is no skill involved. Yeah, it's stealing works, and you're not an artist. You just click a button, and how dare you to call yourself an artist? But often this is voiced by people that haven't tried to work with the technology, that don't know how complex it can be. Yeah, and that the creativity is shifting from becoming more the director, editor, but having a creative plan of how to combine different tools and workflows. I think I can express stuff that I have not been able to express with photography, because I would have needed a special effects team. But I could have expressed it with traditional means like drawing and painting. And I started as somebody who did drawings, who wanted to become a painter, and many of my friends were painters, but they thought differently. I was thinking in black and white and lines, and they were thinking more in spaces and color temperature, and then I understood that difference just later. So right now I can work like a draftsman or a painter, but the outcome looks like photography, and I'm using my knowledge of photography. So I'm very happy with that result, because I have no limitations now. My only limitation is my imagination and the skills to work with the technology and the features that are available. And I love it. Yeah. So I can bring things more onto the point. I can be more experimental. I can work a little bit faster. And it's like a tool I always wanted to have without knowing. Yeah, it's like made for me. Yeah,
So you connect it more with your work.
I do, but I was never afraid to show some vulnerability. Yeah, but I had a work where this was outsourced. I had a video work after my father died and a friend of mine committed suicide, which is called the Weeping Song. I have 3 female actors sitting in a corner in a white dress and weeping. And it's like 12 minutes until the emotion, is having a peak and then going down again. And I was addicted to cyber sex between 2000 2002. And later I did a video work out of this, and I did many recordings and material and edited together to something that shows the emptiness I had at the time and how I wanted to fill it. And it is, I think, would not be able to show it here because talking on what is allowed to show in an audience, that is, you can enter with kids. Yeah, I can't even show it online anymore. Yeah, it was on a hidden link on YouTube. After 10 years, they found it and deleted me and gave me negative points. I think I still have it on Vimeo because there it's okay. Yeah, but it really became a problem of where to store it. So I think showing vulnerability is how we can connect with others. Yeah, and it's a part of life. And why should I hide it? Because if everything is glossy, what are we talking about? Is it art or is it fashion or advertising? When I started to study fine arts and philosophy, I hoped that it would give me an answer or more answers to the questions of life. But I found out that for the really good questions, there will be no answers. But what I learned is possibly to ask more precisely. And there is always an unknown or a mystery or an openness in the work that I do, which is the place that you as a viewer can fill if you want to. And life can't be planned. It's full of surprises up and down, and often all these things are happening in parallel. And I think that should be translated into works.
Yeah.
And but how do you do it? And I'm trying to go out of the mainstream of contemporary art and say I'm not focusing on a certain problem in a certain part of the world, because you could see, like, with the late 90s, the move from art to become more and more documentary or more and more political. And I'm trying to be more philosophical, psychological, anthropological, not talking about a certain crisis in a part of the world, but talking about us as humans, what is in our nature that is constantly creating those crises and problems and war and all the negative things we struggle with. And that is an ongoing challenge. And here we can go back to Carl Gustav Jung, who said this is our personal task, that we need to become aware of ourselves, of how we have been formed by our upbringing and society, and also integrating the negative aspects, the shadows in ourselves, and give them a positive task to become balanced. And this is possible. And I think my work is a lot about those shadows. And then people come and have a look, and often they say, oh, it's too dark or it's too crazy or something else. And but I'm not the only person that gets those responses. Yeah? I'm a big fan of von Schabellen. He's 20 years older than I am, and I know him for 10 years now and have worked as an assistant for him on and off. And his work is also about the shadow. And his response when people say, oh, it's so dark and creepy, he says, well, this is possibly a response of people that have not been willing to confront their own shadow, which is okay. But I think there should be a room in art to do that, because otherwise it's just entertainment.